It is that time. We'll go ahead and get started here. We'll open up prayer and get rolling. Lord, we thank you for allowing us to gather here this evening, that we can come back into your house tonight. Lord, we pray that as we look at, again, finances and money, Lord, that we would look at it with through your eyes, Lord, with a biblical stewardship mindset, Lord, and that we would not just focus in on money, Lord, but realize that there's bigger things at stake than just money. Lord, I pray just always keep that in the forefront of our minds as we do this. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. Debt. Breaking the Chains of Slavery, Part 2. We'll finish these off here, and then next week we'll move on to savings. So, all right. Kind of a review, quick overview. Debt is what? Yeah, anything you owe anyone, yeah. Snowball process. Remember how we deal with the snowball. Yep, smallest to largest. Yep, and then we do what? We max out everything we can on that smallest, leave everything else at minimum payments. We ignore what? What do we, no, well, yes, but we don't care about interest rates. Yes, exactly. That's not pertinent to the snowball. The other thing, we do what? Here's the big one. We pause investing in savings plans that you can. Now, sometimes if you have an employer-sponsored thing, you cannot pause that, and that's fine. But otherwise, we're not doing additional until we get out of debt, until we get the snowball done, okay? That's what we're going to do. We do not include the mortgage, as Katie mentioned. And what skips to the head of the line? 3 letters that strikes fear into the hearts of anybody. IRS, yes, taxes, IRS. So if you owe back taxes, it does. There's nothing more terrifying than getting a piece of mail and it has Internal Revenue Service as the return label, because nothing good comes from that address typically. Your refund checks comes from the U.S. Treasury, not the IRS. IRS, bad day when you get that letter. So that one's going to skip the headline, because what resources do they have? All limitless, exactly. They can take everything. So we want to get them done. That is the exception to that rule. So credit cards. Excuse me. Remember, almost half of all card users carry a balance on their card. So if you cannot commit to using your card within your budget, cut it up. If you don't got one, don't get one. Simple as that. Use caution with your debit card, using that. Because if you use your debit card, it is linked to what? Your bank account, yeah. And there's some things you can put limits on your debit cards. I do recommend that you run them as a credit card. You get a little bit of protection on that, because when you swipe, they'll say, is this a debit or credit? Run it as a credit. So that does route it through the Visa network on that. Gives you a little bit of protections. If they have, and I don't know if anybody does this anymore, does anybody do cash back rewards on your check cards, debit cards? Yeah. Yeah, okay. Start looking out for that. You're going to start seeing that again, because as interest rates going up, they'll start doing checking with interest. That stuff will start coming back. It's been gone for a long time, but it will start coming back. So you can actually get 1% back on your debit card linked to your checking account. So keep that in mind. Look out for that kind of stuff. But that will only be if you run it as a credit. So you'll route it through the Visa or MasterCard network, whoever is their underwriter on that. So, but yeah, just be careful with that. Yes, sir. Yes. Yeah. So for me, I don't accept debit cards or as a debit. So anytime I take a card, it's always 100% ran as a credit card. My understanding is debit cards, your businesses prefer them run as a debit, meaning you punch in your PIN code, because for larger amounts, it's a fixed rate. So it may be 25 cents every time you swipe that card. The business has to pay 25 cents to process your card. But when you start looking at larger values, 25 cents is way better than the 3 to 4% that they're paying otherwise. So they would prefer that you run it as a PIN code, but they're not going to turn down the business. So, but most of them will consider them basically the same. And honestly, the guy behind the register doesn't know or care. So it doesn't really affect anything on that. One thing you can do, if you are concerned using your debit card, link it to your account, is you can have that. You can set up a sub-checking account or a second checking account, and then you just transfer your money into it at the beginning of the month, or weekly, or however you set it up. You can have it all set as automatic anymore. That's the beauty of the online banking system we have today, is you can set up automatic transfers. They just happen. You don't have to do anything. The danger of that is you're not looking at it, and so things can, if something in the chain gets off, maybe a deposit didn't go in when it was supposed to, or maybe you forgot to make the deposit, make sure you've accounted for some leeway in there, especially with bill pay, stuff like that. Give yourself an extra couple of days, because if holidays hit wrong, if the perfect storm hits, all of a sudden your checks don't go out, and now you're late making your payments and that kind of stuff. So just be vigilant and look at it, okay? It's important. It's money, right? You don't want it just laying around. So, but yes, so you can have a sub-checking account and say, hey, we only put $200 in here every time, and when the $200 is gone, we put another $200 in it. A little more work, but does give you that added protection. But you can't go into debt paying with cash, right? If you use cash, you're not going to go in debt. When it's gone, it's gone. That's it. The end of the story. Money cards. You mentioned Venmo. Glad you mentioned that. Money cards, they do give you some protections. You can link them to your checking accounts. So basically what would be like a Venmo card, or was that a Green Dot? No, there's a Green Dot, and Walmart's got one, and there's a myriad of ones out there. And how they work is you charge them. It's kind of like a gift card, only they are linked directly to your checking accounts. And so you manually go in there and say, hey, reload the card, and then it operates like a credit card. Well, it'll be like a check card at that point. Because it is running it through the network, you do get some of those protections that you would get like a credit card. Yeah, PayPal. And we'll give you a warning with all those, though. I do know, not myself, but I know the individual that it happened to. And their PayPal account got hacked. A bunch of bogus transactions happened. They went to their banking facility and said, hey, these are bogus. And they said, okay, that's cool. We'll refund all the money once, and you sever that connection, and you don't ever link PayPal to your account ever again, at least not at our facility. And if you ever do, we will not cover anything. You lose all protection. So just like everything, be careful. Be vigilant and keep an eye on things. So, and passwords, I know we hate them, but, don't use password as your password, just be wise about that kind of stuff. So there's a little wisdom in all that. Car payments. Dave's recommendations is that the total value of your wheels or motors, things that have them or being pulled by them, no more than 50% of your annual income. And why is that? Because if it's got wheels or motor or pulled by wheels and motors, the value of them do what? Go down, yes. Many financial advisors state car payments should not exceed 10% of your monthly take-home. So if you're making car payments and your car payment is 30% of your paycheck, then you need to make a change. And that change is probably meaning what? Sell the car. Yeah. And we talked about that. If you're underwater, you cannot afford the vehicle, because it is always better to sell it, get rid of it, get away from all that, than to let a repossession happen. Okay? So if repossession happens, number one, it ain't your car no more. And you get what from it? Nothing. Actually, you do get something. You get a tax bill. Because what will happen is when they sell the car, say they sell it for at or below what it's worth, then if they sell it above, you get the difference. They'll mail you a check, okay? Minus their fees, minus their collections, there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. Just at a payday loan place, where we ended up getting our Subaru, dude owed $850. That's when he paid it down to $850, stopped making his payments on the thing, and ended up had a $1,400 bill is what they were going to charge him, because they had to have someone make the keys for it. They had to go hunt the thing down, had to pay the tow truck driver to go get it, plus all the processing, title, filing fees, all that stuff. So it adds up quick. So you don't want to do that. The other thing is, if it's sold for less than, and they basically are writing off the debt, guess what you get in the mail? You get a 1099. They gifted you something. And guess what you pay on gifts, that kind of thing? You pay taxes. So you get a tax bill out of it on a repossession. So they're bad. Bad. So, yeah, so if you can't, like I said, if you're in a car payment, you can't get out of it, or if you're underwater on it, go to your local credit union or local bank, not a big name brand bank, but a local one. Talk to them, say, yo, look, this is what's going on. Ask them, hey, look, I can sell the car. All I need is $3,000. See if they will give you a short-term loan for the difference, and then you sell the car, get away from the car, and then just dump the heck out of that small loan to get out of it. So the 10%, doing those rules there. The average income, we figured, of $61,900. That gives you a take-home, by the way, of $56,236. Why is there almost a $6,000 difference there? Because, yeah, Uncle Sam, our favorite uncle there, takes his chunk of change there because he worked hard for that money, remember? That means no more than $31,000 worth of vehicles and your car payment no more than $468. And I should went back and looked. I don't recall what the average car payment was, but it's roughly right in that neighborhood. But I would also say that number might be a little low of what most people actually have, depending on their setting and setup. So I will back up on that. If you are retired and financially well off, your income may not be that. You say, well, look, John, we're millionaires, but we only make $30,000 a year, and we have a $100,000 camper. That's okay. We're talking about here, when you're working, money coming in, because if you look at that, what's your actually return on your $1 million, you should be getting, that should actually be about 10% of what your return is, 1 year's worth of return there. So stay away from the fleece, otherwise known as the lease. You're just renting your car if you're leasing it. You just want to look cool is what that is. That just says I want to look cool, act cool, make people think I got something I don't, except a big fat lease bill. Because you get a new car every 3 years, but you get nothing for it except for a continual bill. So don't lease your car. All right, so the new stuff, medical debt. Medical debt does typically not accrue interest. I should have put typically. There's always the exceptions to the rules on some of the stuff, but it does not accrue interest. So when you are going in for something and you know ahead, that's the other thing. Let your medical facility, if you can, if you're in the middle of having a heart attack, that is not the time to have financial negotiation with the hospital. Hey, before you do it, can you get finance director? No, just deal with stuff. But if some of the stuff is coming ahead, right? It's coming up. So talk to them. Say, hey, look, here's the deal. My insurance isn't going to cover this. And I'll give you a real-world example. So when Kay and I got married with both Hannah and Lauren, insurance we had did not have maternity coverage. We had a grandfathered plan. It wasn't part of the Affordable Care Act. And so it was not required to carry maternity coverage, and we did not have that. But when we walked into the doctor's office the first time, I said, here's the deal. We do not have maternity coverage on this, so we'll need to be making payments or whatever. And they said, here's the deal. If you can pay us for all your doctor's visits today, actually we'll give you till your next appointment, we will knock off 40% off your entire bill. I said, one moment. We shall do that. Yes, I said, that is not a problem. We will make that happen. And so we did, because that also included every doctor's visit, whether it was going to be scheduled or an unscheduled doctor's visit. So because our children decided they don't want to come out the right way, at least Hannah didn't. She wanted to spin around. We had a few extra doctor's office visits. Guess how much extra we paid? Nothing. That was all covered. So there is benefit to talking and letting them be honest with them up front. Another example, University of Missouri. If you now, we've all probably been in the MU. You get two bills, don't you? You get your doctor's bill and you get your hospital bill. And I never can keep them straight which one's which as far as the They do look the same. The coloring are slightly different. And if you are self-pay or for whatever reason your insurance doesn't cover something, what they have in the little yellow box in the top corner is a little bit different. One of them, if you are self-pay, then you automatically get a 25% discount. Boom, off top. If you are, and I think it's the hospital bill, if you pay within 30 days, they will knock another 20 off. That's 45% discount. So there is some things around this. But again, talk to them, let them know up ahead, and we're going to talk more about that when we get to the savings side of things and insurance, that kind of stuff. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I mean, talk to them. But again, the key is just communicate with them. And their billing offices are usually very nice. They're not, but when you start getting the calls from the people that are not their billing office, that the collections, you might have waited a little too long on that one. Okay, talk to them before you get to that point. And usually the payments, I will say, they've got a set. They know like ranges, and they'll say, okay, if the bill is under this much, this is how many is the term of payment we'll give you. If it's between here and here, you get this long. If it's here, well, they extend them out based on the amount, so that they're not. They realize that as a business owner, I always live by the mantra: bad money beats no money. So they want to get as much as they can on that. But just because it doesn't accrue interest doesn't mean it's okay. It's not good debt. It's not safe debt. So how to avoid? Again, as I talked about, cash is king, pay in full. Prepay for expenses, you can do that. Know what your insurance actually covers. I know it's probably boring and nobody wants to do that, but you can actually get all that information and read through it. It's a good thing to do because sometimes the doctor's office doesn't know what they do. And guess what? The coders, they will screw up occasionally. Sometimes things you put in the wrong thing. For example, Lauren, was it Lauren? Or no, it was you. Your last doctor's visit. I came back and I was getting ready to pay it, and I looked down on it, and it said NEWPT, new patient. She's been seeing him for 11 years. She's not a new patient. And he hadn't, it's the university. He hasn't changed offices. There's nothing new about this. And so I called him on. They said, well, it's been because of COVID and everything, and then he was backed up and seeing patients. They said, well, it's been almost 2 years since you last saw him. I said, when's a new patient? They said, well, 3 years. Well, 2 ain't 3, and all it was is somebody just put the wrong category in the coding. 2 months later, they fixed it and rolled it back out. And that's the other thing. Understand, it is not a quick process, medical bills. So anticipate bills coming in 2 or 3 months, or maternity 12 months later. So it was 12 months. We celebrated, 1 year birthday party, and then next week in the mail, I get the big bill from the hospital because that was not covered in the prepay. But, so know what your insurance actually covers. Read your medical bill. Don't just pay it, the whole thing. Well, you should get the itemized one out. It's good, too, but just understand what's actually going on. If you do get medical debt, where's it go? Back to the snowball. Yep, add it on your snowball. So. And there's not, actually, and that's not a, that is a key. That's actually an additional legit thing too. If you want to avoid medical bills, don't have medical problems. Treat yourself right. Drink water. Don't drink sweet tea, coffee, and eat peanuts. And that's it. Huh? Yeah. And if you're gonna work 60, 80 hours a week, then drink lots of water when you do that. So, don't give yourself kidney stones. Don't, just be smart about stuff. So. Yeah, exactly. It's not worth it. If somebody else is paying the bill, it ain't worth it. All right. Moving on here. So money myth. First one for tonight is you must get a college degree to be successful. So, if you think blue-collar jobs are not in demand, try calling a plumber, electrician, handyman, or a roofer right now. If they answer or call you back, your month's out. They probably won't answer or call you back. So, here's some, just a list here. Some of these I think are on the lower side. It's hard to figure averages because realizing these are like national averages, so it's kind of weird trying to get it all worked out. But welder, 41,000, plumber, 54,000, electrician, 57, mechanic, 55.5, excavator, like playing the dirt, 50,000 right there. McDonald's manager, 45. That's not a GM, by the way. That's not a general manager. That would be just a store manager on that. $22 an hour. It's nothing to laugh at. So you don't have to have a college degree. What do you need, though? Work ethic and a skill set. Show up, yeah. Right now, yes, yeah, pulse, yes, exactly. Presence. Yeah, but no, and all those jobs up there, what do all of those take? Some form of what? Skill and training. Exactly. Education is key. You have to have education. You don't have to have a college education, okay? That is key there. Number 2, you cannot go to college without student loans. Costs for college. So, here's a list here. So, what do we see? We see a big difference here between these top 3 and the bottom ones here, don't we? Except for that one. It's the outlier. But what's the difference between those 2 and those 3? Private versus public. Yep. You know how many business owners or I was just saying employers, do you know how many of them are overly concerned about where your degree is from versus what your degree is in? They don't care. That's the equivalent of going to get a job and they ask you, what high school did you graduate from? Oh, you went there? We won't hire you from there. No. They want to know, do you have the paper if it's required? Some jobs it's required. Do you have the paper? And then can you back up what the paper says? That's all they really care about, okay? The reason I included the out-of-state, because if you are going out of state to a public school, you will pay some of the neighborhood. So about 3 times. Now, those numbers do not include room and board, books, all that stuff. That is just the raw tuition rate. You can probably at least double those numbers to understand what your actual cost for college would be. So, some are more than others. But I listed the bottom one here. So, what can you get from Moberly that you can then do to some of these others, if not all of them? Well, not only that, but just in general, transfer. Yeah. But nursing is a big one. Yeah. And because Moberly is, and I mentioned Moberly, which I know online, who knows who's listening online, and that may not be applicable, but a lot of your community colleges have worked really hard to get agreements in place so that they're offering, because they want you to come, because they get more money the more you come, and the more they are able to sell their 2-year degree, their gen eds, the more they're making, the more they get people in. A lot of them have just basically, I would say, like the equivalent of a walk-in. We take your credit straight in. Sometimes, some colleges will say, yeah, we don't really like their program, or that doesn't cover everything we do. We'll make you take a bridge class or 2 or something like that. But Moberly works really hard to be able to just move you straight into that 4-year, if that is the route you're going to go. So, and again, nothing wrong. And if you're going to a community college, that's in the name, community implies it's local, or where does it mean you could live? At home, and you're not doubling that price, yeah, exactly. So there's some added benefits in that. Okay, so if I brought that up, so those are the costs. Some big money for some of those. The question we need to ask, though, the other thing is, when we're going to go get a degree, is will the degree actually pay? Is what you're going into a degree, is it a hobby or is it a career? Are you going into something because you like doing it and it's fun, but there's zero market for it? Or are you going into something that actually can pay, okay? Can you make money doing it? And I mentioned here, a little change. It's kind of an inside joke. My grandmother used to, she would give us a little change. Now, back in the day, if you apply that today, it would be like the equivalent of a penny because of inflation. But she always wanted to give us a little change. We come over, clean, do a little cleaner, straighten or something. She wanted to give us a little change, $5 here, a couple of bucks here, there. And so I laughingly joke and call it little change, but that's what some of these degrees people are getting. They're walking out and they're making $10 an hour on a degree that costs them $60,000. You'll never pay that off. That's not an investment. That's stupid. That's bad. There's no benefit to that. Can you make real money doing it? Okay. Again, job versus career. I define that. Career is something with a long-term financial benefit and potential growth. A job, it provides money but nothing beyond. Is a job bad? No. Career is better. A job gets you to a career. Or a job is auxiliary to the career. Maybe you need a little extra. Get a job. On that, it's when you're looking at salaries, stuff like that, it's not just your raw hourly or your salary that you got to deal with. you have to include your benefits. And the example I've got up here, so we talk about a salary package, all right? A lot of people look at that single number and they say, oh, I'm going to be making $20 an hour, and that's as far as they go. So I have an example here. If you're paying $25 an hour, it's $50,000. If you want to know a real quick, dirty, cheap way of converting from hourly to annual, it's multiply by 2,000 or divide by 2,000. You're close-ish. So if you're looking at two different jobs, and one tells you what the hourly rate is, the other one tells you the annual divided by 2,000. So if I got somebody making $25 an hour, that's $50,000. The other job is going to be $20 an hour, but you get retirement and health insurance. My example here, $40,000 plus $1,200 in matching retirement plus $22,462. That number is an actual average. That $20 an hour job actually pays you $63,000. So the $20 an hour job is a better job than the $25 an hour. So you got to look into that stuff. And I hope there's younger people listening to this, because I know that's more applicable to them than to possibly the live audience here. But that's stuff you got to look into to understand, to look a little deeper just to see. And then the other thing with the career is, are there future opportunities, or is this just side hustle or part-time gig? Okay. Again, it's not a bad thing. It's just, what's the difference there? So how do we actually pay for it if we're not going to do student loans? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. And I did not mention one other thing. I don't think that's on a slide. I should have added it on there. The other thing, when you're looking at your degree, looking at your career, does it actually have a market? Not, it can be legit, but is there an actual market for it? When I was in college, everybody in their neighborhood was getting a TCOM degree, telecommunications degree. And guess what? They weren't getting jobs because everybody else in their neighborhood had a TCOM degree. The market had been completely saturated with it. So I'm not saying you want to be on the leading edge because ain't nobody hiring you yet because they don't know they need you. But you don't want to be on the tail end of that wave. And that's the danger of riding the wave, the fad kind of thing, is don't get caught in that. But yes, networking is key. And even in the networking aspect, that can also generate some of that. Okay, you talk to some people and that job is, that market is declining. I'm not going to go into that market. Yeah. So how do we pay for it? Number one thing, I apologize, font's a little small on that slide. I should have made it bigger. JOB, get a job. You can work your way through school. I didn't say it was easy, but it is doable, okay? Because the question is, why are you going to college? Are you going to go to college to live the college life, or are you going to go to college to get a degree, okay? If you treat your college degree like a job and then get a job, that's the difference. Otherwise, I want to hang out. And that's the thing. If you look at people, they want, some of the college kids, man, I know talking with brother-in-law, some of the vehicles that they're driving. There is a good percentage of Volkswagens and Volvos that he has to make keys for. Those are two of and Mercedes too. Those are probably your top three highest cost of ownership vehicles. No college kid has any business owning one of those, and yet they do. Time management. There's 24 hours in a day. Figure 10 hours sleep, personal time. College kids probably get by with a lot less than that, in all honesty. 8 hours for school. 6 hours of work that leaves. If you add all that up, you get 24. That's during the week. That's not much. Weekend, though. 24 hours in a day, 10 hours, 14 hours work. You add all that up, that's 44 hours a week. And I didn't even count Sunday. You could do a whole work day, a whole work week on that. Now, I understand. You got studying, you got stuff like that. Again, I gave you an entire day, though, on that one. But even if you knock some of those numbers down, you can still work a pretty good job. And again, as we talked about, if you show up, they pay you. I'm not encouraging bad work ethic by any means, but people will pay you. And they're paying good prices for unskilled labor. Yes, sir. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Did you look ahead? You're right on. No, you're right on. Yeah, yeah. So, as Drew just mentioned there, let your job pay for your education. There is reimbursement. Best thing is if you're already at a job and your employer says, hey, we will pay you, or we reimburse you, or at least pay for your expenses to continue to get your degree. And they'll do it over a certain set amount of time. Now, usually if they do that, it is an agreement that you're going to stick with them for a few years. But why wouldn't you? I mean, if you had enough loyalty to work for them long enough while you're getting your degree, stick around for a couple more years. You'll be good. And usually that's 3 or 4 years at the most is typically on that. So even if it's a terrible place, surely you can suck it up for 3 or 4 years for free education. Again, opportunity cost. Saving. Start as soon as you're able to save, okay? But remember, our goal is to push through the snowball. So don't over-prioritize saving for education outside the snowball, okay? The snowball should come first. And then once we're done, because when you realize, think about that snowball, when we got to the end of that snowball, we're pumping out a lot of money. Remember our example we had was it $18,000 a year, I think, was our example of, and those are real world numbers of averages, 18 grand a year that we were putting on debt. You can save for college 18 grand a year. In fact, university, that's more than the tuition cost in a year. So delayed timing. 4-year degree versus extending out to 6 or more years. You know, go part-time, okay? You may pay a little bit longer, long-term, but you're not going into debt. You're going to save it on the back end there. But that also says what? You're truly committed to the journey versus a fad. This is not just something I want to do. It seems like a good idea. I love Dave Ramsey's example. I'm going to get my degree in left-handed puppetry. You know, it's you're never going to get a job doing that. It's maybe something fun. And, you know, if you want later on in life, you say, you know what? It'd be kind of cool to go back to school and learn about such and such. You know, go back. Get your degree then. It's okay. If you can afford to do it, go for it. But that's the time to play, not when you can't afford it. So, loan forgiveness. If you were planning on, as we talked last week, if you were planning on President Biden making all your student loans go away, the Supreme Court says that ain't happening, at least in that direction. They will take an act of Congress to make that happen, which they could do. But just understand that the same hand that rewards is the same hand that slaps you on the back of the head. So Congress can write a rule and then turn around and roll it back and burn you. So do not rely on the government to bail you out. Public service forgiveness, that is a legit method. So basically that is you got your degree, whatever it is, and you say, hey, I'm going to go work in an underprivileged area. Sometimes you see that in the medical field. They'll pay your loans off if you'll go work in an inner city hospital, inner city schools the same way. And they'll have, if you put in so much time for us, every year we knock off so much debt. It is a legit thing. So you can factor that in there. None of these, though, I'll say this, none of those, though, should remove it from the snowball. Keep it going, okay? Student loans are not bankruptable. I'm just going to go bankrupt. No, you're not. There's only a handful of ways to get out of a student loan. Death. That's the biggest one, yeah, if you die. Your family will not be saddled with that debt. The second one is fraud. So say, like you got your degree from a facility that doesn't really have the ability to offer you a degree, but they said they did. But that's also key. Check accreditation. Make sure the school you're going to is accredited, okay? If they're not, I'm not going to mention any names, but you see the ads all the time, University of blank, blank, blank. They're on TV, they're online, stuff like that. A lot of those are diploma mills. A good key of that is if they will give you, what does they always say, credit for, they have a term for it, life experience credit, basically. It's like, no, that's not legit. But if they marketed themselves as a legit, said, hey, we are accredited, we're a full-service university, and you find out later they aren't, and you can't get a degree anywhere because everybody's like, that doesn't exist, like your degree is worthless. If that's the case, then you can get out of your student loans. It's a process, but it can happen. And also, if your university closes, I believe, before you graduate. So I know Oh, yeah. No, and actually, that's a real world thing that just happened up in Iowa. Actually, Katie's alma mater, they shut down. And so anybody who's in the middle of that degree, they should be able to get, because you took out loans for a degree that's no longer, you might have to start over. You don't know. And so, yeah. So there's some things that you can do with that, but it's not easy. So, but you are not bankrupting your student loans. You go through bankruptcy, you come back out, and guess what? Sally Mae, she's still knocking on your door. Loan forgiveness schemes. If somebody anybody get the scam calls about they want to help you, the government programs to refund or forgive your student loans? Yeah, bogus. Even if they are linked to a legit program, the failure rate for the federal student loan forgiveness program before the executive order, all stuff went into place, even before that, it was like a 98% failure rate, rejection rate. So everybody thought, well, I'm just going to get my student loans forgiven. No, you're not. You know, it was stupid stuff like you had a typo in your application. Gone, you're out. I mean, so don't plan on your loans being forgiven. The big one, that one, if that's available, have an opportunity. But again, don't rely on that stuff, because any of those things, if it's public service, that means it's the government's one enacted the program. And, you know, again, they give today and they take tomorrow. So they, at any moment, they could take that away. And the other thing is, do you really want to be locked in for that many years? Get out, because you're also locked into whoever's paying you off. It's an indentured servitude is what it is. So we heard from D1 last week, so we're going to hear from D1 this week on this here. So Katie's going to drag that over, and this is the first video I ever saw of him, and it's just fun. Just double click in the middle. Yeah.
I need your FAFSA paperwork. I need your parents' tax information from 2015, 2014, 2013, a non-refundable check for $125.
I'm finished.
For those who doubted me, yeah, this is payback. And I've been on my grizzy, yeah, since way back. No sir, and I don't drive a Maybach. But guess what I did? I finished paying, selling Maybach. Maybach. 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 Let me tell you what I've been through when it come to Sally. She called me at least twice a day, she want our money badly. Calling me from different numbers, ooh, she thinks she slick. But I got them all memorized, I hit ignore quick. Needed tuition, needed room and board. Had to pay for books, so I took out loans to feed the boy. Graduated, wasn't making quite enough to pay him back. Went in default, messed my credit up, check my Equifax. I ain't proud of that, I'm more proud of that. I ain't drowning that. I got 2 jobs, really got on my grind. No time to whine, I can't ride the pine. In the game right now, my time to shine. Started paying them loans back one at a time. Got them down, till I paid them all off. Peace sign. For those who doubted me, yeah, this is payback. And I've been on my grizzy, yeah, since way back. No sir, and I don't drive a Maybach. But guess what I did? I finished paying, selling Maybach. Maybach. 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 Look, walk inside my crib, yeah, you know I just had a long day. Just got off of work, they got me drove. My boss kept me late. Walk inside the kitchen, grab a dish, and then I fix a plate. Bread, beans, and rice on a Monday. Then I sit down on the sofa, grab the remote, and turn on the news. Open $40,000, $50,000, $60,000, or maybe it's more. Is it $80,000, $90,000, $100,000? What? How much do you owe? Is it $40,000, $50,000, $60,000, or maybe it's more? Is it $80,000, $90,000, $100,000? What? How much do you owe? For those who doubted me, yeah, this is payback. And I've been on my grizzy, yeah, since way back. No sir, and I don't drive a Maybach. But guess what I did? I finished paying, selling Maybach. Maybach. I finished paying, selling Maybach. Maybach. I finished paying, selling Maybach. Maybach. I finished paying, selling Maybach. Maybach.
Hey, my guy, I thought I told you bring it back on full.
Yeah, we were watching that. Katie goes, wait a minute. I thought he was driving a 98 Honda. I said, wait till the end. He still is driving a 98 Honda. Yeah. It was just test drive for the video there. But, yeah, if you didn't watch, if you weren't here last week, look up D1 and 98 Honda. So he's, who knows how much he's worth now. And he still cruises around in a 1998 Honda. Hit the, do what? Hit the start button and connect. Hit the Windows key and then connect. Oop. Whoa, come back here. Bloop. There we go. So it is possible to get through college without student loans. It's not easy. I won't say that. And again, saving is the key. If you can, that's the easiest way is to get started on that. And we'll talk more about that in a couple weeks. Some routes to go on that, some things you can do. Money myth. Renting is a waste of money. So everybody says. So moving to the mortgage. So one of the things, mortgage is we have to live the American dream, right? It's to own a home, own your own home. Was the white picket fence and all that? Yeah. Societal pressure plays into that. All right, that's the society mantra is you've got to own a home. You got to own a home. So is renting a waste of money? Well, if you can't afford a home, don't buy one. Easiest thing. If you're not going to stay for more than 3 or 4 years, rent. Why is that? It's because we're building up equity in your home. You're not going to build up enough equity if you're moving over 2 years. One of the unfortunately a target audience that gets nailed in this a lot of times is guys in the military. You know, they're on a base for a couple of years. What do? They buy a house. Then they move. And what a lot of them will try to do is they will then try to, well, I'm just going to keep that house as my investment property, and we're going to rent it. Except that you're now on the other side of the country, or possibly the other side of the world, and you're trying to manage a rental property. You don't have any clue what's going on there. And the problem is, though, once you bought that every 2 years, you're not going to be able to get your money back out. Okay. So if you're not going to be staying somewhere for 3 or 4 years, just rent. It's okay. If you have a transitory job, same thing. Traveling nurse, just rent. I had a cousin that was a traveling nurse, and that's what she did. She rented a lot of times until she finally got to the point she's ready to settle in somewhere, and then she bought a house. But she's banked a ton of money when she's ready for that. The Bureau of Labor states that most people will change their jobs every 4.6 years. And that may mean you're going to move to a new area, resulting in a new home, meaning your house is now for sale. So that's the other kind of myth here is the perfect house. But this is the perfect house. This is my house. This is the one I want. They sell houses every day, you know. And if you're in an area, if you look at the real estate listings, if you watch it long enough, guess what you're going to see? The house come back up on the market. Again, every 4.6 years, people change their job. So that means their house is going to come back up for sale, okay? A New York Federal Reserve study in 2016 says that the average person in their lifetime will move 11.7 years, or 11.7 times. So I know. But see, you all are screwing the numbers up. So since you all didn't, that means somebody else is moving 12 and a half. So you made them move. It's your fault they moved. But that's actually, but realizing that that is a, when I say an older mindset, I don't mean that in the negative aspect. We usually say, that's an older mindset. That's not what I'm saying. We are now in a new, I won't say new, but we're a very transitory society. And people move a lot. Yes, we're very more transitory. And so again, your perfect home, your dream home that you just cannot wait to have, guess what? Yeah, come up for sale again. It's okay. And if that one doesn't, the one across the other side of town looks just like it will, So they do sell the homes every day, okay? 7.7 times they're moving on there. So the other thing to keep in mind, owning a home, cost of ownership. Like everybody here, we own homes. We understand there's a cost of ownership, right? Insurance. You got to pay that. Repairs, they break. Property taxes, that lovely Christmas present you get at the end of the year. Merry Christmas. You owe the county rent. If you don't pay your county rent, it ain't your house no more. Same thing there. A lot of times that will get lumped into an escrow account. So that is simply just a holding fund for you. So some of you may not have insurance or property taxes. You may not actually pay those. You just don't know it. That's actually lumped into your mortgage. And so you're paying a little bit extra every month. Basically what they did is they made a budget for you. You just don't know it because they didn't trust you would make your payments, I guess. Because having a mortgage and then having your house sold for taxes, that's a squirrely mess. They don't like it. So they just add in your insurance cost and then your property tax cost, and then they'll pay that on your behalf. And if you owe more than they paid, then you get a bill. If you owe less than they paid, then the money comes back, or you can roll it over. So, but if you're not prepared to handle the cost, don't buy. Again, I understand some of this is preaching to the choir kind of thing, but again, we're online, so I don't know who's listening in. But again, if you can't handle the cost, don't buy. And even there is some stress involved in that with repairs and things like that. There are some people who just legit can't deal with that. They can call the landlord and say, "Yo, fix the pipe. Not my problem, yours." And again, the key here, be out of debt. Before you're going to go into a mortgage, get out of debt, okay? The snowball, that stuff, fend it off. So, getting a mortgage. These are Dave Ramsey's rules. Number 1, be debt-free. Have 3 to 6 months emergency funds saved up. 10 to 20% down payment, more the better. Magic number is 20. Why? Because if you put 20% down, you will most likely, almost in every case, avoid PMI. PMI is private mortgage insurance. And that is an insurance that the bank takes out, you pay for them. And what that does is that covers the cost of, because again, when you bought your house, your equity in it is nil. That's going to cover the difference in the mortgage, the value of the loan versus the value of the home, okay? So that the mortgage holder doesn't get burned on that one. That's the concern. So 20% down is key there. Payments no more than 25% of your take-home pay. That's what your payment should be. 15-year loan. Those are the Dave Ramsey's magic rules on a mortgage. One of the reasons we don't include the mortgage in the snowball is it is a long-term loan. Because we're planning on being there. It's also an appreciable asset. It should be going up in value, most likely will. So we're not going to include that in the snowball because we don't want to be camping out, working on that debt forever. We can get all the other personal debt, the little stuff gone, then we can start focusing on our savings, college, retirement, that kind of stuff, and we're still going to be working on that mortgage at the same time. But we'll cover that a little bit more later. So, some additional thoughts on mortgages. Your total debt should not exceed 40% of your take-home pay. That is your mortgage plus everything else you've got, okay? So if that number's too high, you've got to figure some stuff out on that. Remember, your home will usually be most people's largest asset for most of their lifetime. But don't get caught up in that because you can't eat your house. It's a great asset to live. It's not a great asset to spend. You can't spend your house and you can't eat your house, okay? So don't get caught up in that. You can be, you can afford a big house and then not afford to live. Budget for repairs. That should be in your budget because things are going to break in your house. The pipe will leak. And then the plumber will be a week out because you can't get hold of anybody. So make sure. Don't forget, if you're going to refinance, now is not the time to refinance. But the day will come that interest rates will go down again. But if you're going to refinance, people get caught up in that. They're going to charge you closing costs when you refinance. So make sure that you're accounting for that. So you're like, oh, I'm going to save some money. And then by the time you get all said and done, you break even. And all you did was maybe hit reset on the loan. It's not going to benefit you. So be careful with that one. I threw that there at the end. Again, that's not likely something anybody's going to be worrying about for a little while. But, if you do that. So what if you do this in reverse? Because that's probably most of us. We might have some debt and we have a mortgage. So within that, and really dealing with debt as a whole, if you're serious about getting out of debt, you need to be prepared to make hard decisions. We talked about if you got the car you can't afford, you sell it. And that means if I've got a house I can't afford, that may mean I need to sell it. Doesn't mean you can't get it back later. Doesn't mean you can't get something better later. Remember, they sell them every day. And they build new ones all the time. I mean, that's the other thing, too. Heck, find an empty lot in town, and pretty soon you're going to have a duplex sitting on it. So how can question you want to ask yourself, how can I drop my debt load faster so I can get down below that 40% if I'm exceeding that number? I can get out of that debt. And like I said, maybe we need to do a debt avalanche instead of a debt snowball. Let's bump it up. Again, make those hard decisions. Make those lifestyle changes, okay? I love Dave Ramsey, rice and beans. Would you eat rice and beans or beans and rice? It's okay to do that. Remember, have a goal in mind, plan out, and work towards that, okay? Some debt do's and don'ts. I got my things out of order here, apparently on my actions. Don't slack off. We'll start at the end there. Don't slack off, but do stay gazelle intense. Think about out in the African plains, the gazelle, fast, right? If that leopard is chasing the gazelle, and he's like, I'm just going to graze over a little bit, it ain't going to end well for the gazelle, You got to get with it. Number one, don't loan money to friends and family. I think we talked about that under personal loans, but don't do it. It's going to completely change your dynamic. Do extend grace and know the consequences if you're going to make that decision to do it. Okay? Because, again, you're going to change the entire dynamic of your relationship. Remember, borrow a slave to the lender. You don't want your cousin to be your slave. That's just ugly, You got to sit at Thanksgiving together. Pass the potatoes, and are you going to make a payment this week on your loan? That's just ugly. So don't do that. But do extend grace on that one. Don't co-sign. I did not talk about this one, but I included it here. Do not co-sign. Because when you co-sign, guess what you did? You made their loan your loan. Okay? If you co-sign, do be prepared to pay off the loan because it is yours. The bank doesn't care whose account the money comes from. They care about the names on the bottom of the paper. Okay? You co-sign, your name's on the loan. It is your loan. If it goes into collections, you will go through collections. They don't care that was your deadbeat brother-in-law. They don't care. They say, your name's on the paper. We're going to go after anything we can get. So don't do it. Kind of goes back up loan money, family, friends. It's ugly. And then, because you went through collections because your deadbeat brother-in-law, you signed his loan, even though you shouldn't have because he was deadbeat. Thanksgiving's going to be really awkward now because they repossessed your car because he didn't pay his bill. Don't take a mortgage for more than 25% of your take-home pay. And don't take out a more than 20-year mortgage. Dave Ramsey's 15. I kind of fudge a little bit to 20. Do sit down and determine if the current loan is affordable. So if you're over that 25% mark, maybe you need to reconsider some things. Is there a way to hurry up and get some of that off? Or, again, is this house too big for us? My actions did not get in order. I apologize for that. Don't own excessive motors and wheels. Do make payments yourself. If you don't have a car payment, you need to be making one to you, okay? Because as we said, when your car dies, that's not really an emergency. You just didn't plan for it. Because you got a car, it's going to break, right? So make payments to yourself. And if your loan is a 30-year loan or even the 20-year loan, do make the extra payments, okay? It's amazing what just one extra payment can do. You can knock off a ton of time, very quick time. The last thing, and this will be as political as we're going to get on any of this, but money myth, how the government spends money doesn't affect me. So, national debt. Does this actually affect me? So we're going to go to usdebtclock.org. Come on, maximize, please. Thank you. That is a running total of the national debt. We are currently at $32 trillion and cruising. That means that your amount, what each individual one of us in this room as a taxpayer owes, is $252,535. That is your portion. Every citizen owes $96,929. All those kids back there in that classroom, each one of them owes almost $97,000. That's their portion of the national debt. Okay? You think that isn't going to affect you or affect something in our economy? Then we need to have a different kind of discussion. Looking at the national, this is, where is it? I want to go down here to, no, don't do that. Oops. Yes. Okay. Total personal debt. That number right there. That is, that's like our personal loans, and that's all that stuff, all that debt rolled in together. That includes our credit card debt in that number there. $24 trillion. The personal debt per citizen is $73,567. That's a huge number. That means that the average U.S. citizen owes $73,000 for the debt, okay, if we apportion it out evenly. Credit card debt is $1.3 trillion, and then student loan debt is $1.8 trillion. So when they talk about, you hear politicians talk all the time that we have a student debt crisis, student loan crisis. They're not wrong. $1.8 trillion, I think, is a crisis. But it's a crisis that we've created ourselves, and it's not for the government's responsibility to fix it. That's $40,000 per student. So every student that doesn't owe that number just goes up, okay? So we have a serious amount of debt when we're looking at that. You ask why, why home prices and everything gone up so fast, right? Why do we have inflation? It's because we're going into debt. We're printing money, okay? I'm not getting into the great details of the whole economic process of that. But when the government creates a dollar bill, it comes from nothing. There's nothing behind it, okay? It's a piece of paper, piece of cloth, actually. They create it, and then that adds to that national debt. That top number goes up by $1. Whenever that happens, okay? The other scary number, especially for some of the older folks in the room, the current, there it is, that number right there, $22 trillion, that is the debt for Social Security. That's how much Social Security is rolling out on that. So huge numbers that we're dealing with. So we're going to talk about more about this in retirement time. If you're planning on your retirement being Social Security is not retirement. It's an add-on. Actually, it's an insurance policy is what it is. But the unfunded liabilities, $192 trillion. So that is my portion of Social Security added into that number, okay? It's not sustainable. Something's going to break someday. Even if we just kept printing money, keep going on and on and on. So who's at fault? Yes. There's no one party. They're both at fault on that one, okay? In the two-party system we have. They're both at fault in that they both want to spend money like drunken sailors. As someone said, that's an insult to drunken sailors. But our love affair with personal debt, I think, has blinded us to the national effects. We're okay having debt in our own lives, so we're cool with debt in our country's life. It's okay, because I got debt, they got debt, we all got debt, it's all cool. The more you get out of debt, the more debt bothers you, the more those numbers will really start to bother you. And then that's going to change how you vote in the end, okay? My encouragement is when you go to vote for a candidate, see what their thoughts are on debt. Maybe their personal thoughts, what their thoughts are for the government as far as debt. Do they view it as a problem, or are they just like, it's out there as a mosquito buzzing us, Man, even mosquitoes carry malaria. They just find that out in Florida. So yeah, don't discount that. So again, as political as I'm going to get, it's just to see how your elected officials are going to deal with that. See if it's important to them, because I think it's extremely important to us. And you'll find the more you are afraid of debt in your own life, the more you're going to be concerned with debt at the national level. So, all right. Enough of that. So I hope it'll affect how you vote. And I don't mean that endorsing one party, because I'm neither one, so it's all good. Sorry. Review. We got a big review sheet because we got a lot of things. Debt. Anything you? Oh, what are 3 types of debt? Huh? Medical? Mortgage? Car? Yeah. Car payments? Yeah. We got all my personal debts, things like that. Debt snowball steps. Remember, list debt smallest to largest. Maximize the smallest and minimum on all the rest. Keep piling on money for each one. I listed those out there. What is the exception to the snowball? IRS. Skips to the headline. Exactly. Personal debt. Blank, loan money to family and friends. Don't. Yes. And true or false? Payday loans, title loans, personal loans. They're a good stopgap. False. Does anyone remember what some of those interest rate numbers were? Yeah, 600, yeah. Or my favorite one was no limit. That was a fun one. That was the car loans, I believe, car titles on that one. Car loans, no more than blank percent take-home pay, 10%, if you're making a payment. Total value of things with wheels, no more than 50% of your annual income, yep. Fun story on the card loans there. There is a used car dealer in a community near here, and on his business cards, he says, the quickest way back on your feet is to miss a payment. Think about that for a second. Yep. And he ain't kidding. He is not kidding. I don't know how many times he sells the same car. Multiple times. That's not local. That's outside here, but yes. Credit cards. Blank percent of cardholders carry over a monthly balance. Anybody remember? It's 48. Yeah, just under 50%. Yep. If you have one, get one. And you can't or don't go into debt just using cash. Exactly. Cash is king. Can't figure it out. I'm a fan of cash. Even though it's worthless, I'm still a fan of cash. Medical debt. True or false? Medical debt can be bargained. I don't think we talked about that, actually. It is true, yes. Yeah. And we talk about, you can call ahead and stuff like that. And that's actually true for any of your debt. Although by the time you're getting to the point where you can do some bargaining with it, you're in the collection stage, okay? So that's not a good thing. If you're going to do that, and I should have made a slide on this, and I apologize. If you're in that position, okay, whatever you do, get it in writing, and you do a cashier's check or a money order. You do not allow them access to your bank account, because debt collectors will lie to your face. And if they can get access to your bank account information, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to drain every penny. Yeah. So make sure if you're in that position and you get a verbal agreement on a settlement, you say, that's cool. Can you fax, email? I need that with somebody's signature that means something on your letterhead saying that this is done, and then I will mail you a check. Not check, a money order. I'll mail you a money order or a cashier's check today as soon as I get that information and get that settled, okay? Do not allow them access to your accounts. But, again, I'll remind you, the reason you're in debt is because you did what? You bought something. So if you're in collections, remember, you agreed to whatever it was. So there's an ethical thing going on with this, okay? So if you can negotiate down, that's fine, but understand you agreed to the terms, okay? Nobody forced you to take out these loans, okay? So, your word is on the line. And if we're believers, not just our name that's on the line, okay? Medical debt. What's the interest rate for medical debt usually? 0, yeah. All right, student loans. You blank to get a college degree to be successful. Don't need, yeah. you blank to get training education to be successful. You need to or have to get, yeah, you should be getting that. True, false, student loans can be cleared through bankruptcy. False. Death is the only sure way to get out of a student loan. And just so you know, too, the whole student loan process is quite fascinating. We've got some family members that are involved in that industry, in that area, and it's interesting. There's a hit on the educational institution, too, if you default on your student loan. They get dinged. They have like a credit rating, and their credit rating will go down with the federal government. Sallie Mae is not the federal government, but it's directly controlled by the federal government. It's the federal government, as far as I'm concerned. But the feds have like a credit limit or credit rating for all these educational institutions, and if you have your default rate gets to a certain point, then they start hitting you. You get dinged on that end. And so they're not always good about communicating when somebody dies. I know one situation, they had some fun. They kind of got to be a private investigator kind of thing, and they're perusing through, obituaries and death notices, and if they could get a death certificate, then they could clear that debt off their record, on the school's record. So yeah, it's not, and the schools get, you know how much control the schools have over who takes out a loan through them? 0. Yeah. They don't get a say in the matter. Even if they know you're a bad credit risk, they can't say anything about it. So it's a fascinating process. It's weird. But mortgage, true or false? Renting is a waste of money. False? It depends. Yeah, actually it depends. Yeah, it depends. It depends on your situation. There's definitely some situations where renting is the only way to go, and there's some situations that renting may be the better way to go. So, yeah, it does depend on that one. True or false? You only get one chance at your dream home. False. They sell them every day. And somebody will build you a house that looks just like the one you like if you really wanted to. Payments no more than 25% of take-home pay. To avoid PMI, put down at least 20% down payment. And again, we got my wiggle room in there. Maximum loan length to take out, 15 or to 20 years. Yeah. And the key thing with debt as a whole or anything is if you can't afford it, sell it. Yeah. Or don't buy it to start with. You don't have to sell it. So, any questions on the last 2 weeks on debt, snowball, any of that stuff? All right. Next week will be what could go wrong. We'll be looking at some insurance stuff and things like that, and we'll cover a wide array of topics on that because life is the big predictable thing about life is it's unpredictable. So, but not unplannable, and that's what we look at. So, all right, let's close in prayer, and then we can head out. Lord, we thank you for allowing us together here again this evening. Lord, we thank you that we are so blessed here in America, Lord, that we are so blessed materially and physically. Lord, I pray we would never take that for granted, and that we wouldn't, Lord, we wouldn't view money as a thing for our own pleasure, Lord, but as a gift from you, and that tool that you've given us to use both for our own existence, Lord, but also to further your kingdom. And I pray that you would give us wisdom as we go forward. Let us be good stewards of the blessings you have given us, and that we would be good servants of your kingdom. Please be with us this upcoming week as we go forth our many directions. Allow us to return again together. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.